Welcome back to Delivering More, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you tuning in morning, afternoon, or evening. Whenever you can watch, we really appreciate it. As always, if you could hit that subscribe button down below, that's going to help us out more than you could ever know. I'm back in the beautiful city of Canton, Ohio, but my guest is all the way out in Utah. We have Alan Beck of Costa Vida. Alan, thank you so much for joining me today, sir.
Thanks for having me on, Ben. I really do appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you navigating this time zone effort for us. I think we're 3 hours apart, so it's a little earlier on your end. I'm right around lunchtime, but hey, we're getting it knocked out.
It's great. It's great. Not a problem at all. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I appreciate it, man. Well, let's. I like to start out just by kind of knocking out some introductions for our viewership. I did mention, obviously, you're with Costa Vida, been with them for a good chunk of time. But if you could just introduce yourself, your position, your tenure with them, and then we can rock and roll from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, Alan Beck. My title here at Costa Vida is the Director of Off-Premise and Catering for the brand. So I oversee all of our corporate stores and all of our franchise stores, anything off-premise and catering. Been with the company coming up on 6 years. It's been an amazing ride. Started off as an assistant manager in a store and have worked my way up through the ranks through my time here.
That's amazing. And you yourself, you got a family out there. How are we looking? You got some hobbies outside of the workplace? What are we doing every day when we leave?
Yeah, so got been married 11 years. Got 3 kids, two girls and a boy, 9, 5, and 4. Some hobbies that I enjoy. I'm a big time. Love watching sports. Big LSU Tigers fan. Go Tigers.
Oh, boy. Tough time to be a Tiger.
Yeah, it is. It is.
College action to send us to overtime. It's blocked! It is blocked! It is blocked!
Yes, for sure. And then as far as hobbies, obviously sports. And then I'm a big outdoorsman, love to get out in the mountains, fishing, hunting, camping, all of that stuff. So
I'm sure Utah, it's got like a ton of trails, kind of like I would kind of navigate to like a Denver, Colorado kind of area, northern area. You got a favorite trail out there, a favorite park we can shout out?
Yeah. So, obviously up here in like northern, kind of central northern Utah and Utah County. So, everything around here, there's a lot of cool places. Mount Timpanogos is always a good hike. They have a cave inside of it. You can actually get your kids up to it, and they do a whole tour of it. That's a blast. But down in central Utah near Fairview, my family and I are part of an association where we own 30,000 acres, and love to get down there and ride 4-wheelers and horses and fish, hunt, and camp. It's a great time. So love it.
Yeah. That sounds like the life. I think I've only been out to maybe an area like that one time. I was growing up, and my buddy, his dad, worked with some guy who had like a big plot of land out there, and we were maybe in middle school at the time. Went out and rode some dirt bikes, and that was my first time ever being on like a motorized vehicle of any sort. I don't know if we even escaped with a single one still intact. I was wrecking those things left and right. It was a great time, but I was very dirty after.
Yeah, it's a blast. It's a blast. Kids love it. I grew up with that kind of lifestyle. My dad, from a young age, taught us, how to handle guns safely and how to ride 4-wheelers and stay within your limits and dirt bikes, all that kind of stuff. So it's nice to pass it on to my kids. So
yeah, that's all you can do, right? It's amazing, yeah. Absolutely amazing. And I feel like I know you a little bit better now. Hopefully our viewership will as well, and we can skip right over to now your time with Costa Vida. And you did kind of mention as you're growing up, and from our off camera conversation a couple of days ago, you mentioned that you kind of saw Costa Vida as a startup, and now it's grown into what I assume maybe by the end of this year or next year, you guys are going to be over 100 locations. Mm-hmm. So, from small little Utah concept, and now we're a national chain, hundreds of locations. What can you just speak to the development of the brand and how you've seen it from basically start to where it is now?
Yeah, absolutely. So even before my time with Costa, so we have co-CEOs. We have Dave Rudder and Sean Collins are our CEOs. And I grew up with Sean. So Sean grew up in the same. He had a house in the same neighborhood that I grew up in, and so I've known Costa Vida for a very long time. Um, Probably dating back to like 2006, 2007. The company started in 2003, so I feel like I've been on this
Wow.
journey much longer than actually having worked for the company. And it's been amazing to just see the growth, to see the changes over the years and how they've adapted, and from technology to operations to recipes, doing all of that to be able to scale it properly, and to scale it to kind of where we want to go to, and what our goal is to be up over 1,000 stores by 2035. Um,
Wow,
yeah.
that's a lofty goal. That's amazing. I love to hear stuff like that. Love hearing the goals and love bringing them to fruition. I do need to skip back. I like to start off with this question because usually I like talking to obviously people. We're all in the restaurant industry, the food industry, and usually people that are sick enough to stay in the restaurant industry at some point started out in the restaurant industry. What was your earliest time? Were you a waiter, a busboy, a dishwasher? Do you have any experiences like that?
Yeah, absolutely, I did. So when I came about 2010, it's kind of when I started on that. So I served a 2-year LDS mission out in Nashville. When I came home from my mission, I actually had a scholarship to play junior college basketball out in Nebraska.
Wow.
And so I was on a partial scholarship. So it was just books, um, and tuition. So I had to pay for my own lodging on campus. And being a college athlete, you're constantly gone. Sometimes you're gone all week. You're missing classes. So having a regular 9 to 5 job was just not realistic for me. And so but I needed to make money to be able to pay my lodging. And so I applied. I remember Chili's Bar and Grill in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. I started off as a waiter, and then worked my way up and to be a bartender, um, and had a great time. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm still close friends with several of the people, the other waiters and waitresses that I worked with there, and uh, that was kind of like my first initial, uh, like dipping my toe in to say.
Right.
uh, and I kind of always had this outgoing personality. So as a waiter, or as a bartender, it was a lot of fun. I got to talk to people. I got to joke with people, um, have a blast. And then when I was done playing college ball, I moved back to Utah, and I did the prototypical. Anybody familiar with Utah? You do this prototypical. Sales is where you want to be. There's a lot of sales opportunities in Utah, whether that's door to door, inbound, outbound phone sales in a call center, uh, you name it. It's there. SaaS, B2C, B2B, whatever you're looking for, there's a ton of opportunities. And I did that for a long time. And then I realized I was really tired of starting my career over and over again. Um,
Right.
and then I reached out to Sean and said, "Hey, Sean, this is kind of my situation. This is where I'm looking to make a career change. And you guys have any job openings over at Costa Vida? I understand that. I mean, anybody coming out of sales and going into the restaurant knows you're going to take a pay cut." And
Yeah.
so I knew
Of
I was going to have
course.
to do that. And so I started off as an assistant manager in one of the corporate stores here in Utah, and quickly became the general manager after the current general manager actually bought his own franchise inside Costa Vida, and so he started his own group, and so I was promoted to general manager and worked my way up from there. So yeah,
Yeah, that's unbelievable how you found your way back. And then obviously, if we kind of catalyst to where you are now, like you mentioned, you oversee the off premises and the catering, and there was a little bit of a gap in between those positions. What brought you back to the brand and this new position?
great question. So Yeah, so I was a general manager. Then I worked my way up to become a district manager in training, and was helping the district managers and understanding how to be like a multi-unit manager. Um, and then I kind of pigeonholed myself. It wasn't Costa Vida's fault; it was my fault. Kind of pigeonholed myself into a corner where I didn't have much growth opportunities, and so I left Costa for a period of time. I went back into the sales world. A good buddy of mine was doing working with a startup, tech startup, and so I went and was a SDR working there doing the SDR work. And then, but I never really wanted to leave Costa because I realized it had nothing to do with Costa. They didn't do anything wrong. I had kind of put myself in this position uh, just because of the decisions that I had made, and there wasn't any growth opportunities. But I knew I wanted to grow inside the company, so I knew I needed to leave, and then hopefully something would open up in the future that I could come back to. And it did. 7 months later, I remember my previous boss, Caleb Rudder, who's one of our CEO's son, reached out and said, "Hey, we have this opportunity. We're looking to develop this department. Everybody's saying that you have the personality, the mindset, the knowledge, the background for it. We'd love to bring you on and have you come back." Which I knew I wanted to. I was just needed to come back in the right opportunity in the right situation. But the culture um, and being able to rub shoulders with senior leadership and the development that they've helped me on, both personal and professional, has been absolutely amazing. And I knew I had a deep, rich love for the brand and the people. And so I knew when I left, I knew I wasn't going to be gone forever. I knew I'd be back at some point, but I didn't realize it was only going to be 7 months. But yeah, the people, the culture, the, everything that the brand stands for, very much in line with my personal beliefs uh, and whatnot. So, that's really why I wanted to come back.
And it had to feel good when you got that phone call. I imagine though that you were like still in the back of some people's minds, like, hey, we love this guy. He was great while he's here. We were sad to see him go. We want him back. Because especially when you're coming from a sales field where I feel like those kind of companies, it's like they let you go and they don't think twice about you. Yeah, it's see you later. We're going to hire a whole nother crew and we're not even going to remember what your name was 3 months down the road. So I think that speaks a lot. Yeah, you got to be a great guy. You must be a great guy.
I like to think I am. But yeah, it's amazing. I remember it was October. It was Halloween. I was out trick or treating with my kids, uh, 2019.
Right.
And I remember Caleb called me and he's like, "Hey, let's go to lunch." And I'm like, "Okay, what kind of lunch is this going to be? Is this going to be the pitch to come back, or are we just meeting up for old friends?" And he's like, "Well, one, we're meeting up for old friends because we miss you, but then two, he's like, there's an opportunity. We want to bring you back." So it was awesome.
That's amazing.
It was awesome.
That's amazing. And you kind of jumped right into my next question when you bringing up the October 2019, and for better or for worse, you're 4 months into the position, 4 or 5 months in the position, whatever it was, and COVID hits, and you're in this off-premise industry, which, again, for better or for worse, at the time was maybe not focused on as heavily previously over the years, maybe not taken advantage of as restaurant brands should have, and then you're forced into a position where this is all you got.
Mm-hmm.
You're the head of a department that's literally going to be the only driving sales for these stores for some aspects. I mean, was that worrisome? Were you excited? How did it feel once all that hit?
So obviously, I think with everybody, there was a lot of chaos at first, and trying to figure out what this meant. Obviously, daily changes from health departments, and because Costa Vida is in multiple states and Canada, uh, there was. I remember we had daily stand-ups as leadership to talk about any adjustments from the health departments. And so obviously at first there was some chaos. We needed to kind of wade through it and the initial shock. I remember not just inside Costa and our franchise partners, some of them are saying, "Well, I'm just going to hunker down. We'll close our doors and we'll wait it out." And we're like, "Okay, that's not realistic. We can't do that." But then I also saw that in the industry, uh, with some of our partners. I mean, you remember hearing some partners laying off, half of their staff, um, and some, doubling down on their money and bringing out the technology. So there was a lot of chaos at first. Nerve wracking, 100%. Like I can't tell you how stressful it was. I remember myself and my counterpart at the time, his name's Matt, good friend, great colleague, love the guy to death. He's no longer with the company, miss him every day. But man, I remember one day we watched, we do a ton of business with Easy Cater. And I remember in one day, we lost over $100,000 in canceled caterings because of COVID. And both Matt and I looked at each other like, crap, dude, like we're going to be jobless here in the near future. And so there was that panic. And then reality set in. And once we kind of understood kind of how everything was playing out, and how we could capitalize on it, I remember as a company, we made the conscious decision that we are going to adapt and we're going to lift and shift as quickly as possible to be able to capitalize and help not only our communities, but those that work inside the brand and move forward. And I remember there was a period of time I was with the Senior Director of Operations, Josh Brinkerhoff, and our VP of Innovation, Kit Prestwich. I think the three of us spent 3 months straight together, didn't see our families very much. And we were going out and overnight, we flipped on curbside and made, open that revenue channel. And we would go to stores that didn't have drive-throughs, and we would create a drive-through in the parking lot. And we were just adapting and lifting and shifting. And okay, did that work? Okay, yes, that worked. Okay, let's quickly get out a one-page memo and let's make a quick video for training purposes so we can get it out to the brand. And we shifted as quickly as we could and came out with different things. I remember we always talked about how we had the Cadillac of catering bars, and it was big and extravagant, and we had wire chafers and sternos and this nice huge layout, and we're like, okay, that's not realistic anymore. So we had to quickly lift and shift into individual packaged pre-made meals with the utensil package so that we could give it to people that way. We came out with family packs so that people could come and grab dinner for their family in one quick swoop, and no contact delivery, things of that nature. It was an amazing time for innovation, off premise, and operations. We all came together as one, the three department heads, and we came out with solutions, and we were able to propel the brand forward. I remember at first watching the sales dip, and then within 3 months, we were actually back at pre-COVID sales numbers, and our profitability was the best it had ever been. And so at first it was chaotic and crazy, but then we quickly saw, because we were able to lift and shift and adapt quickly to the chaos and double down on what we knew we needed to do, we actually came out of, during and out of COVID, better than we were prior to.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of major brands at least would probably say a similar sentiment, where once you were able to adapt and get in that back in that groove, and whether it was reintegrating with a new POS system or getting some new back-end tech or developing a brand new application from scratch, which I know a lot of brands had to go through, it was tough and a lot of hard times. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry when you see those sales go from what they were to basically nothing. I can't even imagine. But like you also said, though, once you got in that groove again and you're brought back to where you were, almost everyone's exceeding now where they were relatively, I think, to previous years and dates and months and things like that. So I think at this point in time, I appreciate the bounce back and what our industry was able to do and overcome. And it's honestly just I think it really speaks to, I know a lot of people say these kind of things on like LinkedIn and you see all this kind of stuff, but the restaurant industry is just, it's so adaptable and people are so quick to make a change, whether it be forced upon you through a pandemic or just over time and gradual. I mean, it ended up being amazing for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I mean, just there's a few things that come to mind in my world, in the off-premise world. I remember we signed with uh, Jawan George and Olo January of 2020.
Yeah.
We signed that agreement that we were going to make that switch over, and in hindsight, uh, as tough as it was during COVID, had we not made that switch over to Olo and made that conscious decision as a company, I don't know if we could say we are where we're at today. I don't think we could say we came out of COVID or during COVID better than when we entered into it, because our tech stack was not prepared for what COVID threw at us, and so because we were able to insert Olo and have that solid technology provider, we were able to then be able to use different other technology providers that are already integrated with Olo that
Right.
helped us be better. Right? There was I remember pre-COVID as well. This mindset of the third parties, and DoorDash, Uber, Grubhub, Postmates, all that. It was like, oh man, these guys are just taking our money, and there was a very negative uh, mindset towards them, not only inside Costa but inside the industry itself. That these guys are charging astronomical commission fees and whatnot. And then COVID hit, and we're like, crap, we need these partners more than we ever thought we needed before. And we deepened our relationship with them. We changed our mindset. We understood what their business model a lot better. We were able to lift and shift on our end, and now it's a vital revenue stream for the brand.
For sure. Yeah. And that's also another aspect of things where that's another kind of piece of the industry that really got flipped on its head. Like you said, it was prior to all this going down, it was really dealing with like a necessary evil is kind of what people like categorize it as. Like, hey, if we got to do it, we'll do it, but we really don't want to. And that became a scenario where we don't have a choice. It's not a luxury now. It's a necessity, and we need to get this food to people. And how are we going to do it? And
Yep.
like you said, I think the mindset of the partnerships with these third-party delivery services, whether it be aggregators, services like DoorDash, Uber Eats, ourselves deliver that, I think really there was a major shift in the mindset. And I guess we can kind of just get into the catering realm as a whole now, right?
Yeah.
So we're kind of caught up on the past the year or so, getting out of COVID, but the catering aspect as a whole and off premises, like you said, in 3 months, you guys are back to 100% of sales of where you were previously or the months before COVID. What does catering as a whole do for your guys' revenue growth and things like that, especially before your guys' doors are even opening for the store? I know we talked to a lot of restaurant partners where you're sending out 5, 10, 15 deliveries before your stores even open. A lot of times we work with Easy Cater as well, and some of these drivers are calling in like, hey, I have a pickup at Costa Vida at 10 a.m., but that store doesn't open until 11 a.m. What's going on? And we're like, well, they're in there at 7 a.m. getting those deliveries ready. They're getting the food cooked. They're getting the items prepped. You're going to get there at 10 a.m. That customer ordered it for 10:30. We're going to drop it off, and we're going to have a hell of a time doing it. And I mean, I think being able to generate that revenue before you're even having foot traffic inside the doors can really do a lot for a lot of brands.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, catering is huge. We had a lot of momentum going in to COVID with catering, and we were crushing it. And then COVID hit, and even though we were back up to where pre-COVID numbers sales wise, we knew that the sales channels were completely different. Where the revenue was coming in were different sales channels. Catering wasn't a big one, and so since COVID, we've been trying to build that business back up and try to get it to where it was at pre-COVID, and we are now. In 2022, we're going to surpass where we were at pre-COVID, which is as a brand, which is huge. But 2021 was a struggle. It was we grew it over COVID numbers, but they weren't where we were at pre-COVID, and so we had to again mind shift and see what we needed to do internally to make to change that mindset. And one of the biggest things that we did was exactly what you talked about. Just because we're not open doesn't mean we can't capitalize on revenues. And so lead times were a big discussion inside the brand. How do we capitalize on that? I mean, if we have our lead time set at 24 hours, which pre-COVID that worked out, so that we'd get an order, we had enough time to prepare it, we knew we could staff, etc. But then post-COVID, we adjusted and said, okay, what could we actually like? How quickly can we get a catering together? How what's the number at, and things of that nature, so that we can capitalize on that. I mean, an office manager walks into a corporation and a meeting's been thrown on their calendar and they need to get lunch for it. Well, they don't have 24 hours to prepare that. They might have 2 to 3 hours to prepare that. So a big discussion inside the brand was shortening lead times so that we can capitalize on those last second caterings. And how do we do that? Do we package it differently? Do we have a number? We say, okay, if it's under 100 people, yeah, we got it. If it's over 100, I need an extra hour or whatever it may be to get things prepared for it. And change the mindset. This isn't they're in the mind. I would say the mindset is, oh man, pre-COVID, I have this catering and it's before I open, and now I got to bring people in early, and my labor margins are already super thin, and et cetera, et cetera. We'll change it. No, it's as if 50 people just walked in your front door for lunch.
Right.
They've already paid for their order. They're ready to. They've sought you out. They want their food, and we get to take it to them in their environment. And we know our food sets us apart from any of our competition. And so, if we can get our food in people's mouths in their environment, let's capitalize on that. Let's not think of it as a negative and this is more work for me and whatever. It's no, like this is now I can open up my store and I've already done 10% of my day before I've actually sold one burrito through the front line or through my drive-through or whatever it may be.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, and you're walking right into it with mentioning the office buildings and how these orders are usually coming to fruition. A lot of these things are sales reps, sales at medical offices, a lot of that kind of stuff going to businesses. And I mean, when you're putting your food in front of, like you said, it's not one person coming up to your counter and ordering, and then it's like, hey, we need to focus on that one interaction. You're now in a scenario where it's one person that ordered, but they ordered for 25, 50, 100, 150, 200 people. So now that experience is critical to whether that goes from a one-person interaction to possibly 200 separate customers coming back to Costa Vida, ordering next week, 2 weeks, month over month over month over month. And then that's where you're exponentially growing your customer base, your revenue streams, and all that stuff. And I think the catering avenue too, like you said, once people really get a hold of off-premise and understand what it can bring to the business, it really changes the whole mindset and the attitude of people.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. It's been amazing. I mean, I remember pre-COVID when we started to build this department, we were, when we talk about when I refer to off-premise, we talk what Costa refers to off-premises is our app and online ordering.
Oh yeah, of course.
Third parties and then catering. Those are the three categories that make up the off-premise department of Costa Vida. And we were 9% of sales total. And we, when we made the conscious decision, we were thinking, oh man, like if we could get this to like 15 or 16% of sales, like that would be a huge hit. COVID hits, and now we're, peak COVID, we were up over 60% of sales. And then since dining rooms have opened and things have kind of gone back to normal, I mean, we're still hovering at 30% of sales for the brand. So when you really think about that, we went from 9% to 30%. It's been a huge shift from our native app and website to our relationships with the third parties to, our relationship with Easy Cater and companies like Deliver That and others to be able to execute our caterings. It's been huge for us.
Yeah, it's again unbelievable. Like you said, I mean, when the goal is 15%, you end up literally doubling that goal. It's tough to complain about something like that most of the time, whether it was a pandemic induced or whatever, what have you. And again, you mentioned again these third party services like the marketplaces through EasyCater, services like Deliver That, and we kind of mentioned, I want to bounce back to a little bit, just the thought process and the experiences of the restaurants and dealing with the third parties and what that relationship was pre-COVID and what it is now. Is there anything you can attribute to other than the fact that it became a necessity? Why do you think the attitude towards it has not necessarily, I wouldn't even say gradually, I feel like almost like overnight, it's kind of been like, hey, now we need to work with these guys. We need to develop partnerships. We need to have better interactions with them, report the issues, have a better communication system, figure out what's going on with them, figure out what's going on with us, and move forward. What do you think was the catalyst to all of that happening?
Well, when I really think about that, and I think about how we shifted inside the brand, uh, really what it boils down to is it's like someone you don't get along with, right? Why don't you get along with them? Well, I don't know. I just don't get along with them. And then actually, when you start searching out, like, and trying to understand that person better, whether it's in the office or in your personal life or whatever, most of the time, I'm not going to say every time, most of the time, you actually end up becoming friends or better acquaintances, or you don't have that any animosity or frustration towards each other anymore. I would say that's the biggest thing with the third parties is I think pre-COVID, we didn't understand their business model as an industry and what they were trying to accomplish and what they were doing. The way that we looked at it is we looked at it as they're coming in here, they're taking my food that I make, that I take all the time and blood, sweat, tears, and staffing and et cetera. And then you're going to charge me a 25, 30, 35% commission. My profit margins are already razor thin. But then COVID hit and we realized this is a solid opportunity for us. And so I think what it did for the industry is it forced us to dive into and understand what Uber Eats is doing, what DoorDash is doing, what is their business model, how can we work together. And when we finally understood on a deeper level of what they're looking to accomplish and how we can capitalize on that, those walls and whatnot were broken down. I would say some of my best partnerships now are with the third parties. My last year, our DoorDash rep was in our office pool for March Madness. I mean, that's a close relationship, right? You're not just gonna, oh, I don't like this guy, he's gonna come in and be in this pool with us. No, like we have a great relationship there. We have weekly calls. We've strengthened the roots of the relationships and understand each other now. Now the conversation isn't just, okay, here's the commission, have a great day. It's, okay, we want to run marketing campaigns. How can we capitalize on it? How can we work together to build the brand forward, et cetera? I would say that's, as an industry, we've seen that happen. Obviously not across the board. There's still those out there that still have a negative mindset towards the third parties, and that's fine. But for us, I can say, because we understand what their business model look like and how what they're looking to accomplish and how we can work with them and how we can accomplish and capitalize on those things, it's been big for us.
For sure. And I think another piece of it for me was always, as the restaurant operator, it's your customer. Like they're ordering from your brand, but now it's not your customer because they did it on a marketplace or another third-party provider. So it became like a battle for the consumer, where I think a lot of it is almost, nowadays you got social media and the negative just travels so fast. So if Costa Vida does 40 DoorDash deliveries and 2 go haywire and end up 30 minutes late, or one doesn't get all their food, those 2 voices are way 10 times stronger than those 38 that, hey, they got their food on time. They got what they ordered. They're going to order 2 days down the road. No one hears about that. But the things that go wrong, it's astronomically exposed to the next level. And I think for me, there had to be an aspect where as the brand, you have no control over that interaction. You don't know how that driver's going to show up, what they're wearing, what they look like. You don't know how they're going to interact with your store. You don't know how they're going to interact with your customer. And for a very long time, everything through restaurants was always first party. So you're always the connecting point. It's always A to B. And now it's like an A to B to C relationship, and you have to manage that. And I think there's maybe a little bit of fearfulness about that interaction on the end consumer side.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because like it absolutely right. One thing that we just talked about, we have our annual brand conference every March here in Salt Lake, and one of the big things that we talked about on the off-premise side for that brand conference is we talked about, the big theme was who's our guest, and we talked about everybody except ourselves is our guest, including our team members in the store and whatnot. So knowing that was going to be the theme, how we presented our presentation was the attitude towards these third-party drivers. You're right. We can't control what they wear. We can't control how they look. We can't control their hygiene, et cetera, things of that nature. But what we can control is how we interact with them. And our mission at Costa is to have a positive impact in everyone we come in contact with. And so if a driver walks in, whether it be from Deliver That or an Easy Dispatch or DoorDash or Uber, whoever, and we don't treat them with the utmost respect and whatnot, that not only are they representing our brand and delivering, but they're also our guest. If they come in when they're not delivering to eat food, how we treat them as the driver, that's going to reflect. Like if I walk in as a driver to a Costa Vida and the staff treats me like crap, and then I'm back with my family and I say, hey, where should we go for dinner tonight? I say, well, anywhere other than Costa, because those guys are a-holes, right?
Yeah.
Versus, hey, I can't control your look, if you're on time, what you're driving. Hopefully you don't have a pet in the car, whatever it may be. But what I can control is when you're inside my restaurant, we're going to make sure that we have a positive impact on you. If that means we have to offer you a drink, hey, thirsty, it's hot outside, can we get you something? You hungry? Do you want, little kids quesadilla to go? Whatever it may be. If we can have positive impact on those drivers, they will have a positive impact when they get that food to the guest. I've actually seen this exactly when we know their names and we treat them with respect and care and love. They help grow our business. I've actually seen it. I was in a store just the other day where driver walks in, the general manager's like, hey, Josh, great to see you. How's everything going? How's the family? Has a personal relationship with this driver. They talk for a second. The driver's, I'm here to pick up this order for so-and-so. Oh, here it is. General manager hands the order to the driver. Driver puts it in his bag, goes out to his car. The driver opened up the bag to confirm that everything was in there, saw that we were missing something, and then came back in, said, hey, I'm actually missing one item. Can we grab? Oh my gosh, we're so sorry. Let's grab that for you. He just had a positive impact on our business because he didn't have to do that. He can go and deliver it. And now the guest is upset and frustrated that they didn't have everything in their order. But because we treat them with respect and have that relationship with them, now they're helping grow our business because they're looking out for our business because they love the relationship that they have. If we treat them like crap, they just grab the food, they walk out the door, they deliver it, they don't ever look at it. Then we're host, right?
Right.
So,
yeah. And I will say, speaking from a driver perspective, that interaction with the store, like you mentioned, is everything. And especially on a platform like ours where these drivers aren't necessarily being assigned directly to the deliveries. They're just selecting the deliveries themselves. They can pick and choose if they want to deliver this brand, deliver that brand, deliver this delivery, that delivery. Like you said, that could be the difference on our end in us getting a Costa Vida delivery covered. Because if Chad took a Costa Vida yesterday, he complains, says the store was late, they weren't paying attention to him. Then he has a bad interaction with the customer. Well, if there's 4 deliveries for Costa Vida tomorrow, he's going to see all of them and he's not going to take them.
Yeah.
And then we're canceling the deliveries, maybe shooting them someone else, figuring out another path to get that food to the customer. Whereas if they have that great interaction where he walks in, the manager says, "Hey, Chad, how you doing today? Thanks for taking that delivery yesterday. This one today is a little lighter. Hope they tipped well, whatever." And then that becomes, that relationship starts to form and that bond begins, which in turn creates revenue for both ends. It ends up great for Deliver That. You and I have conversations about these great drivers that are showing up to your stores. Yep. Your customers are ordering, they're sending the great feedback, and it just becomes a great life cycle of a restaurant partner and a delivery service where comes to this great fruitful partnership, which I think obviously is the end goal. Like everyone always says, you just want the process to be as seamless as possible. We just want to go from A to B. We want to make the food. We want it picked up. We want it dropped off. We want it eaten. We want great feedback. We want to hear the customer out. Whatever happens, happens. And then you go from there.
Yeah. Amen. Absolutely. I mean, especially with the outside factors of gas prices and whatnot. So it's like, there's any negative thoughts towards that brand or that store or that group or whatever it may be, you could be hurting yourself unintentionally because you don't, again, when the guest walks in to pick up their food, you shouldn't treat them any differently than a driver. That's the same person in our mindset. So whether it's the guest or a driver, are we looking to have a positive impact on that person? Simple as that. Yes. We want to have a positive impact on everyone that comes in our door. Let's do it. And it'll pay off in the future. And we've seen that. So.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a great way to close it out, in my opinion. Do you got anything else you want to bring up? Anything you want to talk about? Or we can just get out of here?
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate all the listeners joining in and listening. If you guys have any questions about Costa Vida, please reach out to me. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm on all of those platforms as well. If you have any questions for me personally, let me know. And Ben, thank you to you and Deliver That for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, Alan. I appreciate this, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon, man. I do appreciate you giving out those socials. That's usually my last question. I completely blanked and forgot to ask it. I assume the tag's like at Costa Vida,
yep,
or Costa Vida restaurants on all platforms, maybe.
Yeah, at Costa Vida Fresh Mexican Grill. So
Fresh Mexican Grill, perfect. I appreciate that. Awesome, man. Again, we appreciate you for coming on, taking out the time to speak with us today, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. See ya.
See ya.